on? Okay. Good morning. Roll call the July 11th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting to order. Recommendations of the Planning Commission on certain items from this agenda will be considered by the Board of Commissioners at their regular meeting on July 19th, 2022 at 10:30 a.m. The Planning Commission utilizes speaker request forms, which are available in the chambers during the meeting. So if anyone would like to speak on an item, there are speaker request forms in the back. So roll call, it looks like everyone is here and Commissioner Hadcock is representing the Board of Commissioners. The first item on the agenda is election of officers. So I would like to open up nominations for the chairperson of the Planning Commission. So I'll entertain any nominations.
I nominate Karen.
I'd nominate Charlie.
All right,
I move that nominations cease.
Second.
right, nominations have ceased. So how would the commission like to, would you like to do that by roll call or by ballot?
Roll call. Roll call's fine.
Roll call, okay. So first, we'll go with those in favor of Karen McGregor as the chair. Signify by saying aye,
Aye.
We raise our hands.
or roll call. Okay. Go, Jerry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Roll call.
Deb?
Karen.
For Karen.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I get it.
I'm going to abstain. I'm going to let you guys pick your person. I'm going to be nice. I think that's more just than having some commissioner vote.
Kevin?
Charlie.
Mike?
Charlie.
Kevin?
Flip a coin.
Kevin?
I would say nay. We're voting for Karen, right?
Karen or Charlie, so just your
Okay.
vote.
I vote for Charlie.
Okay.
I vote for Charlie.
I'm not voting for Charlie. But, I like Charlie, but but I'm voting for Karen. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there enough if I abstain to be?
Yes,
Okay, I'll just abstain.
okay. So
you.
Charlie Johnson is the chairperson, and now he can take over the meeting for nominations for the vice chair and second vice chair.
Thank you, Karen. Nominations for the vice chair are open and on the floor. Do I have any nominations?
Karen for vice.
Any other nominations? And you would serve? Okay, I'm going to call the nominations closed, a unanimous vote for Karen.
Okay.
Aye. Everyone aye?
Aye.
Thank you. And then we need one more.
Second vice chair. Yes.
Second vice chair. Has anybody thought about this? It's last session, 3 times, I believe I served. So it can come up, you can serve, so you got to do a little practicing. Any nominations for
I
Second
nominate Michael.
Michael? Would you serve if you're elected?
If you would take the chance, yes, I would.
Okay, Michael is accepted. Any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor of Michael signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I think we'll list that as unanimous too. Thank you. We're ready to roll again. Approval of the June 27th, 2022 minutes. Anyone have any corrections, discussion they would care to make on those minutes? If not, the chair would address a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes from the June 27th, 2022 meeting of the Pennington County Planning Commission. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the agenda. Have you all gotten your packet or went through it on site? Chair to address a motion to approve the
I
agenda.
move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded, to approve the agenda as submitted for the June 11, 2022 meeting of Pennington County Planning Commission. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Consent agenda. Now, one thing I have done different, and I spoke to Brittany before the meeting, should you have errors in either the minutes or the items, I was going to suggest in our member meetings, but it might as well be now. If you bring up clerical errors or whatnot, just bring them up as we're proceeding through. Don't pull an item or separate it. Let's shorten up the process a little bit here. Bring it up as we're going through the item. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brittany Molitor, Planning Director. The following items have been placed on the consent agenda for action to be taken on all items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration. The findings of this planning commission on certain items from this agenda are recommendations to the Pennington County Board of Commissioners, who will make the final decision. Item number 4 is conditional use permit review CU 1403 for Lonnie Ryman to review storage units located in a highway service district. And staff is recommending approval of the extension of conditional use permit CU 1403 with conditions. Item number 5 is conditional use permit review CU 1727 for Beverly Sears to review an existing 12 by 12 structure to be used as a single-family residence in a suburban residential district. And staff is recommending approval of the extension of conditional use permit CU 1727 with conditions. Item number 6 is conditional use permit review CU 2030 for Jay and Mary Smith to review a single-wide mobile home in an agriculture district. And staff is recommending to end conditional use permit CU 2030. Item number 7 is conditional use permit review CU 2101 for Thorn Kinetic Systems, Robert Espinoza, to review a home occupation, a home-based firearm business in a suburban residential district. And staff is recommending approval of the extension of conditional use permit CU 2101 with conditions. And finally, item 8 is conditional use permit review CU 2102 for Inra Rifles, Inc., Mark Lemke, to review a home occupation, a home-based firearm business in a rural residential district. And staff is recommending approval of the extension of conditional use permit CU 21-02 with conditions.
Thank you, Brittany. Does staff have any items 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 that they would like to pull?
No, not at this time.
Does the commission have any items 4, 5, 7, or 8 they would like to pull? Thank you. We do have a little bit of an unusual situation here before we go on. We have 2 people on Zoom on item number 7. I don't know who you are or where you are, but I understand you're on Zoom. Do we have someone on Zoom on item 7? That would be the conditional use permit on Thorn Kinetic Systems.
Charlie, they are not logged on.
Okay. How about number 8? That would be conditional use permit CU 21-02 Inuit Rifles.
They are also not logged on.
Okay. Let the record show that we did ask. They were listed as being on Zoom on those 2 items, and those 2 items are consent items. So we will now vote on those, and we will vote on them as one item. Discussion. Hearing none, the chair would take a motion to approval.
I'd move approval to.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar, items 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. And you're already there. Item number 9, please. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioner Chutima Sabun, Planning Department. This item is a conditional use permit, CU 22-27, to allow a bed and breakfast on the subject property. The applicants are Jeffrey and Kelly Gorman, and they are here in the audience if you have any question for them. The location is at 8412 Dunsmore Road. This item was continued from the June 13th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting to allow the applicants time to address the concern from the planning department. The concerns are the undersized septic system, the location of the unattached bed and breakfast, the kitchen in the unattached bed and breakfast, the fire extinguisher, the approach permit, the building permit for the existing living spaces in the unattached bed and breakfast. The applicants provided a picture of the new fire extinguisher and a copy of the approach permit. The applicants have contacted staff about their plan to address the other concerns. At this time, not all of the concerns have been resolved. Therefore, staff recommends denial without prejudice.
Okay, questions for staff?
Chairman, I thought sorry.
Go ahead.
Chutima, I thought you said they met all the requirements?
Did not.
I thought you said they did.
Oh, yeah,
I
not
apologize.
all of the concern have been resolved.
Okay, and what are those concerns? The septic
The,
tank for
the
one?
septic system, the location of the unattached bed and breakfast, the kitchen of the unattached bed and breakfast, and the building permit for the existing living spaces in the unattached bed and breakfast.
So at this time, do we continue it until they get that?
I recommend the denial without prejudice. If with the deny without prejudice for this CUP allows the applicant time to, 1 year to address, to bring the bed and breakfast into compliance, and then when are ready, they can, resubmit the application and they don't have to pay the application fee.
Okay, thank you. And you already told them that.
Yes, we have discussed that
Thank
with
you,
the
Ms.
applicant.
Chutima.
Any other questions? I'm just getting some forms here. Chutima, if, I'm along a little bit in Deb's part there about a continuance versus a denial. And I went through the amount of paperwork on this, it's substantial. And I think there's a number of items in question, not only from our position, but theirs as well. For instance, the grandfathering issue that came up, and the finalization of who's going to prevail in that matter, that sort of thing. Would it be such that if it was continued, and there was a checklist made that said, in other words, if it was continued, we probably couldn't pick a date. But if it was continued so that then when that checklist was done, that this could come back before the commission, is that something that's
If
the department could live with?
If the planning commissioner wish to continue it instead of denial, staff has no problem with that.
Additional questions for Chutima?
So Chutima, Chairman, then you said deny without prejudice because instead of continue for them to comply, why?
Because that's a whole year for them to bring the bed and breakfast into compliance, so they have a whole year. But if they resolve those concerns, they can come back in any time within that whole year. If you continue it, we don't have the exact date when they have to bring it to compliance, and we have those issue with the other conditional use permit before that we continue it, and then the applicant don't don't meet the continual time by that certain date, and then we have to end the conditional use permit anyway.
So Charlie, I'll be up straight. If they believe that it's going to be in the next couple weeks to a month, then it's good for a continuance. If they believe it's going to be longer than that, then I will probably vote deny without prejudice. Just because they get a whole year anyway, and then we're not keep putting it on our agenda every week or every 2 weeks, or, see what I'm saying?
Right.
So Chutima makes sense if it's more than a month for them to comply.
Yes, I agree. I don't think we could set a date on a continuance if that was the suggestion. I'd like to hear, I guess, from the applicant,
Yes,
since
sir.
we've kicked this around, before we go any farther.
Yes, sir, I guess that's my point, that's why I asked her.
Okay.
Because we know the continuance can be continuing on,
Right.
where if they have a set date for deny without prejudice, maybe it's gonna take them a certain amount of time.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions for Chitima? Thank you. And the applicant is here, did you say? Jeffrey and Kelly?
Kelly, yeah, they're both
Kelly's
here.
here? Okay. Kelly, just for the record, you have to introduce yourself and then go ahead and speak. If you want to speak first or handle questions, you do it how you see fit.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Kelly Gorman, owner of 8412 Dunsmore.
Okay.
And you just wanted to hear, like, where we're at within the process?
Well, I guess the very place to start here, do you understand what we're talking about, the difference between a continuance and a denial?
The continuance, in my mind, we didn't discuss that, Chichima and I. We discussed the denial without prejudice. So I guess my current understanding is it just would be continuing to be on the agenda every so often or whenever until we get this completed. Our plan is, like, the biggest holdup, what I would say, is the septic. I've called, I can't tell you how many people. I did get a bid from Water Sage yesterday. I'm waiting for one who was supposed to have it to me by today from Big Red Construction, but they're all looking, like, some people, I'm assuming you speak to them, but some of those septic companies won't even give you a bid because they're a year out. So I was thankful just to get those. So it's going to take some time, probably won't have the septic in until fall, is what these two companies were saying. So that's the biggest piece. And then the other piece that Chichima and I did speak about was just the short-term, the committee. There's another committee working on the short-term rentals or something like that. So I don't know, I'm gonna start attending those meetings as well, because I think it's just, I don't know what you want to hear, but that's where we're at as far as that piece. Everything else we've pretty much gotten taken care of. Other than, like, separating the kitchen from the bedroom. We did that based on what one of the workers in planning and zoning had told us, but then we're told that wasn't correct. So we'll go back to the drawing board on that particular piece.
Would it assist you, my question would be, would it assist you to have a sort of a check-off list of the remaining items?
Well, I feel like
before
we
you can-
have that. We spoke
Okay.
Friday. I spent quite a bit of time
On Friday?
in the afternoon on Friday, because that just was what was confusing to me, because
Alright.
we were having some emails back and forth. And I feel like we came to a good consensus as far as what needs to be done, and it's doable.
Yes,
So.
I have sent an email to the applicants with the bullet point that this is a septic with the options, how to bring it to compliance, the location of the bed and breakfast, how to bring it to compliance. So, it's not an actual checklist, but I put it in a bullet point for the applicant to see what she has to do.
Thank you, Chitima. Any other questions for Kelly?
Chairman, so you understand there's like 4, if I'm correct, bullet points: the septic, the location, the kitchen, and the building permit, and then she lined those out for you. And then if you need her help again, call her,
Yeah.
because Chitima, actually, our whole staff there is very helpful.
Yeah.
And then have them come look at it before, that's usually the best way to do it, to make
Okay.
sure you comply before you come back and go, okay, we thought we met it, but. So I usually have them come out or have me come out, not in this case, but on certain things to make sure we complied. So I think the deny without prejudice makes sense instead of the continuance. That way you have a year to get it done.
I just think working with the different contractors, this just takes time to get this, whether we're building, because we're planning to build an addition that would attach a separate garage to our house too, like, just to get somebody out to your house, you guys have to know, like, it is extremely difficult and demands a lot of time just calling different people to try to get them to do the work for you, just because everyone's busy.
And
which
Miss
I guess is
Kelly,
a good-
your bed and breakfast looks very nice, so I hope this goes through and you get the help you need to
Thank you.
get,
Yeah.
get moving forward, because it is very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Oh, I wanted to make sure, and I'm correct, and it's denied without prejudice, stays in effect for 1 year, 2 years? 1 year? just so that everyone understands that. I just wanted to make sure that that hasn't changed in the time I've been on.
Does that mean that if they complete this project in the next 3 months, they can
Come forward.
come forward and we can reschedule it? Okay, great. But they have up to a year is what it comes down to. Okay. All right, I would so move then.
Is there a second to that motion? Second. Been moved and seconded to deny without prejudice per staff's recommendation on this matter. After discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. And we're on to number 10.
Morning, Commissioners. Jason Tennyson, Assistant Planning Director. Agenda item number 10 is conditional use permit 22-30 to allow a recreational park on the subject property. Applicant is Larson Recreational Properties LLC. Their agent is Pascal Perot. He is on Zoom if you have any questions for him. Location of the property is north of the existing Larson's Crooked Creek RV Resort at 24184 Highway 385. Parcel size is 12.71 acres, currently zoned Highway Service District. It is vacant. Access is off Highway 385. There is special flood hazard area and floodway on the property. Zoning ordinance lists 7 criteria the Planning Commission may consider in their review of conditional use permit applications. They're on the screen. I'll read staff's responses, starting with number 1. No, allowing a conditional use permit should not be detrimental or endanger public health, safety, or general welfare of the public. Conditions of approval have been included to address RVs parked within the special flood hazard area and floodway. Number 2, no, the requested use should not have any negative effects on the use and enjoyment of other properties in the neighborhood. Number 3, no, allowing this conditional use permit should not affect normal orderly development or improvement of any surrounding properties in the area. Number 4, yes, the property is currently vacant of any structures or utilities. A private well and cistern will be the source of water. An on-site wastewater treatment system will serve the RV park. Number 5, yes, ingress access will be provided via existing approach on the adjacent parcel, 24184 Highway 385. Egress is to be provided via a proposed approach on the subject property. The applicant will need to work with South Dakota Department of Transportation for approval of the egress approach. 6, yes, the property is zoned Highway Service District. RV parks may be allowed with an approved conditional use permit. And lastly, number 7, yes, the future land use of the subject property is highway services. Allowing this conditional use permit is consistent with the current comprehensive plan view to 2040. Property history, it is vacant of any structures or utilities. There is a floodplain development permit for minor grading and construction of a gravel RV parking pads, of parking pads and gravel driveways. Request was sent out for interdepartmental review. County floodplain managers listed 5 conditions that need to be included as conditions of approval. And the South Dakota Department of Transportation stated that this section of US 385 is classified as rural, with a minimum spacing of 1,000 feet between access points. South Dakota Department of Transportation has concerns with proposed exit onto US 385 and will reach out to the applicant. And getting approval of this approach is included as a condition of approval. Pennington County Zoning Ordinance Section 306 also lists application requirements for a recreational vehicle park conditional use permit. Staff found that they did meet all of these requirements. Staff's analysis of the request is that the applicant is proposing a recreational vehicle park to be constructed in 3 phases. That is up here on the screen. You can see red outlined is phase 1, green outline is phase 2, and blue outline is phase 3. Phase 1 will include 24 RV parking sites with utility hookups. Phase 2 will include 23 additional RV parking sites with utility hookups, and phase 3 will include constructing a pool, a laundry facility, and a bathroom shower house. The pool, laundry facility, and bath shower house and 36 of the RV sites will be located within the boundaries of the FEMA designated special flood hazard area and floodway. Floodplain development permit and building permits will be required for these structures. Conditions of approval have been provided by the county floodplain manager that will include, or that have been included to address RV parking requirements in these areas. The applicant's plan includes utilizing egress-only approach off of highway, or onto Highway 385. Again, South Dakota Department of Transportation has expressed concerns about this plan, and they will need to be resolved prior to operation. Staff did, the site plan that's on the screen for you to review here, staff did notify the applicant's agent about concerns regarding a single point of ingress and egress. For phase 2, in green here, there's only one means of ingress and egress. So with that, the applicant did provide an updated site plan. So there is a secondary means of egress because this is within the boundaries of the special flood hazard area and floodway. With that, staff recommends approval of conditional use permit 22-30 with conditions.
Questions for Jason? Go right ahead.
Comment. My family and I moved here in '73, right after the big flood, and we spent the first few years looking around at campgrounds and trailer courts and things that had all been wiped away. Somebody that hasn't been through a real flood, when you look at these fingers sitting out on the creek, I mean, if that were to flood, now, wildfires and floods don't go according to plans. They're very chaotic. And if just up the way they were to have a cloudburst and the creek were to expand, you're not going to get people out of there in time. I mean, to have a flashlight with the rain coming down in the middle of the night, you can't see in the first place. I mean, this looks neat the way you say you're going to tell everybody this and tell everybody that, and if the emergency notification's made, you're going to leave. In my way of thinking, to put it next to a creek that drains a huge area is not a real cool thing. I have some real concerns. And there are other campgrounds that are like this already, and I understand that. But we are now looking at this one as a separate thing, and I'm not very comfortable with it. And that's basically all I have to say, Jason.
Karen.
Go right ahead.
It also says the existing RV park is extremely tight, and the only most experienced RV drivers and backpackers can get their full-type camper parked on the spot there. So that also is a concern with that, plus having, isn't it floodway next to the creek?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So we're letting them park RVs next to the creek in the floodway?
That's actually an ideal use from FEMA because they are temporary. They're not permanent structures. So in the event of emergency, they can be pulled out of there. That's why the conditions of approval have been added in there, that they can't be permanent structures. They have to be removable.
And I appreciate that, but I too, if a flood comes, I don't think you're getting out there. I think it happens in the middle of the night. I see it on TV all the time. People are camping or have their RVs, and you're right, a big flood of water comes, and then next morning, all of them are gone, not thinking that, there's going to be a flood coming down that creek. So I think this whole area has had issues before, and us approving it and keep approving stuff in the floodway, whether it's RVs or not. I'm with, tell me your first name again. Michael. I'm with Michael. I've seen the damage it does, and it doesn't take long. And he's right. Once you have a rain coming down and you can't see and you can't hook up, most people are still going to try to hook up just because they don't want to lose their vehicle. And by that time, they could all be washed away. So as much as I like business and I'd like to do business with people in the county, this for me is a little rough. Plus, when you tell me it's extremely tight, only the most experienced RV drivers and backpackers can get there and pull a type camper parked on the spot there, that they can't have a hard time with that. That tells me too, if there's an extreme issue with trying to get out already, let alone if there's extreme conditions happening on the property. So unless the applicant has a different idea or can explain, for me, this is pretty extreme.
Additional
Mr.
comments?
Chairman?
Go ahead, Jim.
I thank Deb and Michael for bringing this up because I think we frequently have overlooked these situations, and this one seems to me to be a particularly frightful one. Temporary parking, but the fatalities would be rather permanent. And seeing as we're not very far from the 50th anniversary of the of the flood that not only affected Rapid City, of course, but to outlying areas, throughout the fatalities were throughout the area. I think it would be incumbent upon us to consider looking at this more carefully. And I just think we cannot be too casual about such issues of safety, particularly when these are people who are guests, who are unfamiliar with the terrain, so to speak, under those circumstances. And perhaps there's a way to define this such that there would be, safety would be met, or safety concerns, but I think I think we should go back and look at this. I really do. I would be opposed to approving it based on the information we have so far. So,
Additional comments or questions for Jason?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
is there a possibility of adding another condition that would make sure that everybody was aware that they had a potential flood zone and that they were parking there prior to leasing any of those spots? Is that within any of our,
I did include that as a condition of approval.
okay.
Yeah.
For me, as long as people are aware that that is an issue, it's a personal risk that they would be taking on. As long as it's very clear to them that they are potentially parking in a flood zone and could be hazardous to them, that would be the risk that they would decide to take. So I'm not opposed to this development.
Chairman,
Go ahead.
one more thing. If it was a couple of families that could get out and there would be that kind of risk, because, a couple of them, it's a little bit different. You have 36 of the RV sites will be located within the boundaries of FEMA. So, again, you might see the sign, you might not see the sign, and I appreciate that, Kevin and Jason both, but you just never think it's going to happen. That's your bottom line. You never think it's going to happen to you, and it only takes once, and that's 36 families for sure, if not the others. So that's, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I truly don't believe anybody ever thought in 72 that it was ever going to happen.
That's right.
So like I said, and last night was a perfect example. If you went, my husband went through the middle of the night at 10 o'clock and the streets were all flooding and the creek was pretty high. It doesn't take long. 1 minute he walked in the building, next minute he walked out and it was flooded. So it takes that long before people can't get out. So
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I think what Commissioner Hadcock has pointed out is that none of us, or few of us, have ever experienced a flood. So to say to a farmer from Iowa, hey, we might have a flash flood, he's not going to be familiar with that kind of experience. None of us probably are. So we cannot, I do not believe, in spite of what has been suggested, that we allow the consumer under these circumstances to make a choice like this. I think because consumers under these circumstances and in this situation would simply be too ignorant of the situation. And so it's incumbent upon government to provide some kind of direction here. And so I think we need to look at some other possibilities. And the number of 36 spots is.
Any additional comments or questions for?
I have,
Go
Charlie.
ahead, Karen.
Item, on condition number 17, it says no RVs located in the special flood hazard area or floodway may be allowed to remain more than 180 days. Could that be shortened quite a bit? Because that's 6 months.
Yeah, it's a roll of the dice.
That's pretty permanent.
So some of those conditions that I pulled those straight from FEMA, because they do have some regulations out there about RVs in floodways and special flood hazard areas. So I took more or less the guidance from them.
But Pennington County can do something different?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Make a quick comment to go along with all this. They're talking about an emergency, like Willett's organization would say, we have an emergency, you're going to have to clear. A couple of years ago, I was hiking up at Deerfield and I noticed some clouds forming towards Hill City. By the time I got down to Hill City, which was probably a half an hour, that had rained, it had blown the culverts out, and we had that flood in Hill City. There was no way during that time that anybody would have had time to say, hey, there's an emergency, you need to leave. And that was in broad daylight. And that blew out doors of houses and everything else. I know I helped clean it up. So, like I say before, wildfires and floods don't go according to plans. They just don't. It looks good on paper, but boy, when it comes down to it, it's not a pretty picture.
Any other questions or comments? Jason, I'll be short on mine just to clean up on Mike's a little. That flood came off the side of the hill in Hill City and went all the way through the railroad museum yard office and everything, and that fast. And I happened to be standing there that day, so I know how fast it was. Mine are under health and safety too first, and it is within requirements, the design. My concern about 10 feet width, I've noted it before in other ones we've had between either RVs or mobile homes, I do not consider sufficient with fire danger. If one catches fire 10 feet away, the other one's going to be burning too, and you sure hope the folks are going to be out of them. And my other one is to fit in with their comments, having been a regular RVer, a lot of these reservations are made a long time in advance. When you go to sign up and you finally get your slot, you don't know whether it's in the floodway or whatever. You're going to have to make that decision that I'm not going to take this slot because I'm in a floodway if I was concerned about it. What I'm saying as an RVer, I probably can't get another place to park my RV. Is what I'm saying. You're back against the wall by the time you get there and you sign up and you know where you're at. So that has to be considered in these two. So enough comment there. We do have 2 request forms, so I think you're off the hot seat, Jason. We have 2 request forms. And let's address the one, I believe there's one on Zoom for us for this item. I've marked it. And you are the
I am with Larson's Crooked Creek. Pascal.
Good. That's who I thought you were. That's why we're going to address yours first. Thank you for being with us. Please introduce yourself just for the record and go ahead and make your comments, or should you desire us to ask questions, we can do that. Thank you.
My name is Pascal Peratt. I am one of the owners at Crooked Creek. And as to the concerns with size and width, we do have that same concern with our existing campground. The scale is actually a little different than the 10-foot. Our sites are actually proposed at 15-foot wide with a 15-foot yard in between each site. Other than that, phase 2 and 3 section. The part that we want to address first is going to be those 24 pull-through sites that are out of the flood hazard way. In red, the phase 1. We are absolutely open to ideas for safety concerns with phase 2 and 3. Again, that was the approval that we were kind of looking for was for phase 1, the outlined in red. And again, we are working with the Department of Transportation on egress. And we had a meeting with them and showed them what we were considering, and they brought up some very valid points. And there may be a concern for exiting only out of Alexander Drilling, and we are in the works of talking with him about an easement. But that has not been fully decided on egress, and I know it's on condition of if we can come to terms with safe exiting and entering of the new addition. But as to the flood hazard way, in 2019, we've had 20 inches of snow on May 22nd, and then it rained for about 10 days after that. And we did see the full, well, maybe not full force, but a pretty close to the similar flood that had happened years prior. And it did wash away our road. We have a land bridge that goes over to our lodge. I do know that on the creek side where your concern is with the new sites, there's actually, it's lower on the trail side. So on the Mickelson Trail side, it's about 3 feet lower than what that bank and that plane actually is. But that water, when that did flood, it was all the way up to the Mickelson Trail, and it was about 6 feet onto the bank of the side that we're proposing sites on. And those sites are 75 feet long. And with our existing park, the tight spaces and the experienced drivers is definitely one of our concerns, and that's why we escort everybody down to the site. We make them well aware of the surroundings, but with this new addition, we didn't want any of those headaches, and that's why we oversized the site pads and extended the lengths and tried to accommodate as many pull-through sites as possible, as they are easier than back-in sites.
Thank you. Just for clarity, then, phase one would be your drawing that we have in our book in red?
Yes, sir.
Has the commission found that? To be able to look at what he was speaking about? Thank you. Any additional things, Pasquale, right at this point? We will ask you if you would stay with us after this, because there could be additional questions and comments.
Sure.
Thank
Yep,
you.
that's fine.
I appreciate that. We do have one speaker request form in addition to, we have a Ken Rega. Please come up and introduce yourself just for the record, Ken, and go from there. Thank you.
Which one? Doesn't matter.
Either one.
My name's Ken Raga, from Hill City. I'm not much of a public speaker. Kind of just been a logger all my life and school teacher, but I've lived in Hill City since 1956. That's why I was born and raised there. I own the property just off Raga Road, right across the creek up there. I bought it in 1988. And so I've lived out there for 34 years. And I'm not against progress, but I am very concerned about what we're leaving our kids. I've seen so many changes in my years in Hill City. When I bought that property, Roy Alexander owned all this piece that we're talking about now. And he said, you guys never have to worry about anything going in there as long as I own it. Well, that's changed. That's changed. I'm surprised that there's not more people here that from the adjoining properties, but I don't know how long I have to talk to you guys. I don't want to bore you. But, you know, I guess we didn't know it had been sold. And all of a sudden, all this construction's going on. And they're blading off the meadow. And they're bringing in fill dirt to put on the right side there in phase 2. There's 7 campers now across the Mickelson that are right against my neighbor's property, right against the line. I have pictures. I'm not prepared for this, you know, sorry. But I do have
You're doing
pictures
fine, Ken.
of 2019, when the cabins that are right down here along in the old, or there's water up in this cabins, in this campground. Now, in 1972, I was working in Keystone when the flood hit. And all those campers that lost their lives were parked right along the creek there where the bear carvers are now. Almost all. A lot of people died there. They didn't have time to get out. This drainage starts at Sylvan Lake, Crazy Horse, all that drainage. You can have 3 inches of rain, 4 inches of rain at Crazy Horse, not rain in Hill City, and Spring Creek runs over the banks. This 2019 is when that high water came through. So it's not a 100-year flood we're talking about here. It's very often. One of the questions I have is building's already in progress. There's 7 campers across the Mickelson now that join the Elliott and the Janowski properties. And I got a letter asking for a permit. And I thought it was already approved. I don't know how that takes place, I guess. I was very concerned about it. There's property to the right of Spring Creek, where you see Spring Creek go through there. that's all wetland. Show you on the, can I show you on the
Sure,
monitor?
go right ahead.
For this is the old campsites. Clear up here that's all wetland there. I have pictures of that wetland I took last night. 7 campers parked on that side. I don't know whether they have a holding tank or they put in a drain field, but it's all on the right side of the Mickelson. And that's not even including what they're getting ready to do here. So they're, as far as this property is concerned, here's the Mickelson.
Correct. I was going to ask you to point that out.
Right down in here is where I don't know if it's a drain field or holding tank. I know they were forced to do away with the drain fields and go to holding tanks. And we used to hear the truck down there pumping out once or twice a week, maybe 3 times a week. And I haven't heard a truck pumping for quite a while there. Oh, I'm sorry. I haven't heard a truck pumping down there all summer. I don't know if they're pumping or if they're in the drain field. I don't know who keeps track of this. But I'm concerned about the pollution in Spring Creek. I know that when they did the study several years ago, they traced all that stuff kind of right up to that area that was going into Sheridan Lake. And let's see. Like I say, I have some pictures from 2019, the one I think you're talking about. Michael, was that the flood when that big one come through town there and stuff? Yeah.
There was 2 years in a row, Ken.
Yeah, of the cabins, actually, there's water up to those cabins. I mean, up in the cabins there. Another thing that happens here is there's 14 of us that live across Spring Creek in Deadbroke. And after what happens is the water builds up in their creek crossings in the campground because they're just little culverts. They've improved them some, but the water builds up. When that washes out, it comes down and washes our road out. There's 14 residents behind there that we can't get in or out for emergencies or anything. I just think that adding this much more to our already overloaded environment is not a good option. The spurs coming off to the creek there, what are they gonna do with the sewer? That's number one concern. What are they gonna do when the rain comes down and they put all that fill dirt in there and all that gravel that's at all those sites washes down the creek? Eventually it's gonna build up. Well, it does, it builds up and makes a mess. So,
Ken?
Yep.
Would you go ahead and I'm sure there's some questions from the commission,
Oh,
I
yes,
see
go ahead.
already, if you would like. Go ahead, Mike.
Just to go along with what you were saying, now, looking at that map there, has some work been done already on some of those sites?
Oh, the topsoil is all gone in this first phase here, and there's sewer pipes laying out there and stuff, and there's fill dirt put in on the right side already, and then where the 7 campsites are, they're not even in this picture. They're crossing Mickelson.
Who owns that land? That's some of
theirs.
theirs too.
Yeah, yes. It's that long spur that
Long,
comes up.
skinny.
If I could go back to the original map, but I
Yeah.
don't. But yeah, it's
Can
on
you
that.
bring that picture, one moment, Ken, can you
Okay.
bring the picture up that we have in our book, Jason?
Okay.
Yes.
So it's
Thank you.
actually, I guess I could point it out with a pointer here. Right here's, let's see, this is my property, I think. No, right here. Anyway. Right in here, there's 7 campers. With a drain field. I don't know if it's a drain field or holding tank. I can't answer that. But that wetland actually starts clear up here and goes all the way down along the Mickelson here, clear to my property, clear down in here.
Is there electricity to these 7 campers?
Yes, there's electric boxes there and everything already.
Approved already?
That's why I said I thought it was all done. And then I got a letter in the mail saying,
I would defer that to the applicant. I'm not aware of any development on this property at this point.
Jason, but I am going to go ahead. Do you want that answered now, or would you rather have your questions continue?
Go ahead and ask.
Pasquale, they're asking about 7 campers, prior to the phase 1, which we're headed to talk about. Go ahead.
So I was told we had Freeman's Electric do the electrical over there and quality driven services for the septic. There is a holding tank and the state has already looked at, along with the county. Chris with quality driven services went through the permitting process for the septic and for the electrical. As to the RV sites, it is just owner personal use. There is me and 3 other guys that are over there, but the truck campers, the number of campers is kind of a parking spot just for them. It's not a permanent solution to that. Originally, we had talked about possibly building a maintenance facility back there as it's out of the way, but the permitting for the electrical and the septic did go through the proper channels. And to the construction on the new side, the north end, that land that it's within that 10,000 square feet, as we've applied for a stormwater permit and how it controls the sediment with the long grass from reaching the creek. But all the proper permits were applied for.
Okay, just for clarity, there was one thing that could be confusing. Those that are occupied of those locations, are those staff? I heard friends and
Yes.
people. Are they people that are working at the location at this time?
Yes, yep, staff.
Thank you.
And owners.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman.
Go ahead.
So Jason, they're allowed to put those 7 campers there? And even if this isn't approved yet?
If it's personal use, they can put their campers on there. I mean, it's not for the commercial use is what's being requested at this point.
Okay, so he said there is personal use is him, not his workers, right?
Right.
There is, but some of the workers that work for us are family. Eric's cousin and Eric's little brother are over there as well.
Okay, so you said some are.
So they could be parked there. They can't be lived in on that property. That would also be a conditional use permit.
Okay, so you guys are living there in your campers?
Yes, we are currently staying there. I was unaware that we could not occupy them. I thought it was just for parking, but I guess that is my mistake.
Am I correct? He cannot live there right now until
Correct.
okay. So you're in violation of living on the property that has not been approved yet, sir? Just to be straight.
Additional questions for Ken, please.
No, same stuff. I just, for 34 years I lived above this property and all of a sudden there's a 14-unit motel one up there. It happens. I'm just wondering about the permit process of how does this happen?
Ken, I have one question. Do you understand what Pasquale is talking about, that at this point in time, he may be interested in at least securing the appropriate support for just phase 1 and look?
Yes, I understand phase 1, but
What would your position be on that if you were just looking, and phase 1 being that's in red in there? You can just barely see the red.
I'm against it.
Okay.
But I don't own the property,
Chairman,
so.
Yes, go ahead.
couple of things, Mr. Pascal. Number one, for me, you're already in violation and you're not following the rules and regulations on this property already. Number two, you had some floodway and some things on this property. Doesn't tell me that you're gonna do your due diligence, because of you already violating the rules and regulations. And then you have a property that could be a potential hazard in the future if not followed and not following the rules and regulations, sir. So do you think at this point, me personally, I could ask, would you approve somebody that just was in violation?
I apologize again for the violation. I was unaware that we were not allowed to occupy those sites, but I did try to go through the due diligence with the permits, and the state had mentioned to Aaron with the county that we were required to have a pump that doses the appropriate leach field and not a gravity feed system, as it favors sides, and they've had issues with it contaminating creeks and ecosystems as well. Again, I apologize for I didn't realize we could not occupy it for personal use. We had talked to your neighbor, Kenny, Rush, Elliott, and explained to him that we would not be renting those sites out, and that we could put up, the existing fence was already there, and that we would post it, no trust. We want to be good neighbors, and I apologize if you took offense to it, and we will do anything at all to make it right.
So Mr. Pascal, I'll ask you the question again. You are in violation of not knowing the rules and regulations at this point. When you get on a site, you should know all the rules and regulations, especially with a creek and a floodway. That adds more hazard and more issues to the surrounding problems without following rules and regulations. I'm going to ask again, would you personally, if you were a business person, approve somebody or let somebody on your site that didn't follow all of the rules and regulations and look them up beforehand? And now I would have to trust that you would follow them in the future and know all those rules and regulations, sir.
Yes, ma'am. I hear exactly what you're saying, and I understand if you were to deny me for it, but I do believe in second chances, and we do want to make it right. There's a lot to the regulations for this, and I apologize if I did not educate myself on every possible thing.
So, Mr. Pascal, here's it's not you personally, sir. It's because I was here for the 72 flood. I did see what happened when people didn't follow rules or regs, or we were putting people in areas we probably shouldn't, we knew we shouldn't at that time, but we do now know those rules and regulations. And for me, putting this by the floodway, I think your campground can be successful. I just think putting stuff by the floodway is not a positive thing for your patrons. And it shouldn't just be about the money at this point. It should be about health, welfare, and safety, sir. So for me, I hope this turns out good for you and you can do some other stuff to make this so it's not in the floodway and still make the money and do your due diligence, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Ken, you can sit down. We didn't mean to leave you standing
no,
up there. I didn't want to
but
interrupt anybody.
I did have one more quick question.
Go
I'm
right
sorry,
ahead.
Guys. What, is there a setback from a property line? Isn't there supposed to be something like 25 foot, or can you go right to the property line with whatever?
Ken, I think I can address most of that if you'll let me.
Okay.
It used to be, and I wanted to ask Deb this, it used to be that we couldn't pass something when someone was in violation. The violation at least had to be addressed. And it didn't always hold up that applicant's request. It just created a situation where you address it, either considered it a complaint or a valid violation. Is that still the case?
In some instances, these are to correct violations, so.
Right, but you've already addressed that there is a violation, and you've set up a penalty or whatever the violation is, correct?
Right, the violation is double the fees.
Does the commission understand what I'm asking? Why?
Yes, but at this point, I don't think our planning department knew that they were parking in
No.
that area, so they are in a new violation.
That's what I was suggesting, that this one almost looks like we need to extend it. I don't know what you can say because they're in violation. You can't really address what the request is, but give them some time for the planning department to review the comments that were brought up here. Either make an official thing and tag it so that this applicant can go forward. In other words, I would think we're in a position we need to continue this because it's up in the air. And I'm open to whatever the commission thinks on that.
I'll move to continue for 2 weeks.
Second.
Is it moved and seconded? Discussion. Mike?
2 weeks enough?
Yeah, I don't think so.
I mean, I'm
Jason, I
asking,
guess you're the
planning
one that
department.
I'm gonna have Jason answer that, Mike.
I think 2 weeks would be enough to address the request. If
Okay.
the applicant is gonna modify the request to drop off the phase two and only go with phase one.
At this
and then-
point,
and
it
then
sounded
move-
like.
And then move the personal RVs out of the floodway, I believe that's the direction the commission wants, right?
Yes.
And maybe add those to the request. when it
2
comes
weeks
back.
is sufficient at this point in time.
Right.
Mike, does that answer your question?
You bet.
Any other discussion while we've got Jason up here in this regard? Thank you, Jason.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Anyone from the audience that wants to comment on this yet? Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to number 11. Thank you, Pascal.
Thank you.
Cody Sack, environmental planner. Item 11 is conditional use permit amendment CU 22-06. It is to amend an existing conditional use permit for a gunsmithing business to include buying and selling new and used firearms. The applicant and landowner is Kent and Kim Dissy. Location of the property is 23607 Tigerville Road. Current land use is residential. Current zoning is rural residential district. Access is off Tigerville Road, and there is no special flood hazard area on the property. When reviewing conditional use permits, the planning commission may consider the 7 criteria. The answers are on the screen. I'll read them aloud. Number 1, no, the requested use should not be detrimental or endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare of the public, considering in-home occupations take place entirely within a structure on the property. Number 2, no, the conditional use permit should not change the residential use of the property and thus should not have any long-term negative effects on the use and enjoyment of other properties in the immediate vicinity. Number 3, no, the requested use should not affect the normal orderly development or improvement of any surrounding property in the area. Number 4, yes, access is off Tigerville Road. There is an existing on-site wastewater treatment system on the property. Number 5, yes, the requested use should not significantly impact traffic congestion. Number 6, yes, the property is zoned rural residential district. Home occupations are allowed in the district with a conditional use permit. And number 7, yes, future land use of the property is rural residential district, which allows for single-family residence as a primary use. Home occupations are secondary use that are allowed through a conditional use permit. Currently on the property, there's a single-family residence with several accessory structures. Again, there is an on-site wastewater treatment system that was placed in 1996, and there is an operating permit from 2016. This was routed out for interdepartment review. No objections or concerns were received. The applicant is amending a conditional use permit, which was approved on March 14th, 2022 by the Planning Commission meeting, or at the Planning Commission meeting. That was approved to just make Blake ammunition. The applicant is now requesting to buy and sell firearms. The applicant will not have any employees and will be shipping the blank ammunition and firearms to the customers. Staff has received 1 letter of opposition and 1 letter of support for the request. With that, staff is recommending approval of conditional use permit amendment CU 22-06 with conditions.
Thank you, Cody. Questions for Cody?
I have a clarification on the letter opposing has 6 signatures. It's not just a letter from 1 person, 6 of the neighbors.
Any other questions or comments for Cody? Mike?
Just as a, whatever. I was in sales for years, and when you want to get something in a store, you sell the merchant 1 item. You come back a few months later and say, hey, how'd you like that? You do okay? How about going with a few more items now? That's called product creep. We started back in March with blanks. Now we've got emission creep going to firearms. This is not a particularly big area. I'm very familiar with it. And with UPS trucks driving like they do, is zipping around, going in there, now you're going to have firearms. I'm not sure that that's a good thing. Just my thought.
Any other questions or comments
Yeah,
for
Mr.
Cody?
Chair.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I just noted one correction on item 6 under analysis A1 in our packet. Says the applicant is now requesting to sell and sell firearms. I believe that should say buy and sell firearms.
Correct.
Just a correction for the record.
Thank you, Kevin. Any other questions or comments for Cody? We do have a speaker request on this. Is the applicant here, Cody?
Yes.
Okay, would the applicant like to speak ahead of the speaker request or behind? I'm going to leave it up to you. Go ahead. Thank you. Please introduce yourself just for the record and go from there.
My name is Kent Dissy. I'm the applicant. And I guess the reason for this amendment is because of the requirement for the ATF, for the license that I'm applying for. I used to have to carry 3 licenses, and now they have it combined all into one. And part of that is the buying and selling of firearms. I have no intentions of opening a storefront, of having customers come to me to buy guns, sell me guns, to be firing guns. I'm not going to open up a firing range. Most of my business is done across the country. I travel to events. The firearms that I buy and sell are mostly for combat mounted shooting. They're single action revolvers. At these events, people are joining the sport, they're quitting the sport, they want to sell their guns, or they want to buy some guns, and that's where I do 99% of my business. Same with the ammunition. I deliver most of it to the events that I attend. I'm able to work on guns with this license. Somebody maybe drop a gun in the dirt, it needs to be cleaned, it needs to be fixed. I can do it right on the spot at the event. I don't bring them back to my home. And I have no intentions of owning a storefront. There'll be no signage. All the conditions are being met of my original application for my conditional use permit. We live there because it is a quiet area. We live on the end of the road. You've been told that there's increased traffic on the road, and that might be because we're in the process of building a new home. There's a new home going up across the road from us, and there's a new home which will be started right next door to us. So that might explain the increase in traffic. As far as maintenance on the road, I've done a lot of maintenance on the road myself and not asked for any money out of it. I've plowed the road several times with snow. I think I charged once to plow. And then I guess like I say, my main business is across the country where I travel to. And I haven't even started business yet. I moved here from Minnesota 2 years ago, and I would like to get it going here because once our house is done, I do plan on traveling again and getting my business going again. So that's about it.
Thank you, Kim. Questions for Kim?
I have a
Mike?
question, Kent. Back in March when we okayed this, the ATF license you had for the blanks, at that time, was it also for firearms, or is this something new?
In Minnesota is where my license was, and I'm transferring it out here. But in Minnesota, I carried the 3 licenses. One was for the manufacturing One was for the buying and selling of guns, and the other one was for handling being able to buy the powder, explosives.
So if you just had an ATF license for blanks like we okayed back in March, what license would you need at that point?
They now have I had like a class 3 license. Now they have it's called class 7, which includes all 3 of those licenses that I had in one.
And that's what you have to have at this point.
Yeah.
Chairman,
Go ahead, Deb.
there's a couple of things. Did you put any signage or anything
No.
up? Okay,
And I have no intention of doing that.
well, and then the other thing is, it says signage necessary maintenance expenses, which you help with, and you're not going to be shooting guns
No.
for noise, okay?
I haven't
So-
fired a shot out at our place. I've lived there for 2 years.
Well, I can tell you your ATF license would be taken away if you were irresponsible
Exactly.
in the first places in a lot of things that we're talking about today,
Yeah.
sir.
If
So-
I do anything wrong, there's no question. They don't question you. They pull your license.
And then it also said many people don't even know that our little subdivision exists, and that's how we like it. So if you look, we feel this amendment is granted, it will certainly take away our rights of enjoying of our own property to the fullest. So if you're saying last 20 years, many people don't, and now that many people don't even know we're there, and they're still saying it at the bottom of those 5 reasons, you're also saying that he's putting up signage he is not. You also say necessary road maintenance he helps with, and noise of gun being fired, he'd get his license taken away. So, I understand the concerns of the neighbors, but if I'm also helping with a road, and, I think, Mr. Dissy has done his due diligence, with responsibility on this. That is my opinion, just from reading some of the things, that people have said on this paper, and that he has addressed them. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb.
I'd like to make
Additional, go ahead.
one comment if I could. We do have a neighbor. He doesn't live on our road, but he does live in the adjoining property behind us. And he does fire a lot. Yeah, I don't know if he set up a shooting lane or what, but he does do a lot of shooting back there. I may be accused of doing that, but it's not us. It's not me.
Additional questions for Kim.
Mr. Chair. How many deliveries in an average week do you have coming to your house?
For the business
Yes.
right now, none. I haven't even started the business yet. I can't do anything until the ATF approves it.
And so what's the
my-
anticipated?
I can't. Most of the stuff coming to our house is
Personal.
what my wife's shopping habits, I guess.
Yeah.
We're not the only ones getting deliveries on the road. I can have a talk with my wife and have her curb the deliveries, but.
Hey,
Good luck with that one.
we don't stop shopping.
Well, no, you can't, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the firearms industry, but, and the ammunition, how unavailable it is, how hard it is to get. I can't buy a primer anywhere right now. I can't, if I wanted to, I couldn't do business. Gunpowder. The gunpowder I use is black powder. It's almost impossible to find. My supplier from 2 years ago went out of business last November, shut down.
And I had one additional question for you. If you're manufacturing ammunition out of your garage and you are using flammable material, just for the record, I am an avid reloader and have for years, so I'm very familiar with what gunpowder can do. What fire mitigation measures are you using within your manufacturing area? Because if your house happens to catch on fire, it creates quite a risk for all of your neighbors. And so I'm just wondering if there's any, what measures you're taking for any fire protection?
The building I'm in it's not near the house. I'm required by the ATF to have a powder magazine, which is a metal box the powder has to be locked up, stored in that. And they actually have a GPS location on that box. So if I move that box, they know it. It's got 2 locks on it. The building's locked, has security on it. I have outdoor cameras for security and lighting. And it's pretty strict. I have to keep track of every pound of powder, probably unlike you because you aren't licensed. I have to keep track of every pound of powder that I purchase and where it goes.
And do you keep fire extinguisher within your
Oh, yes.
reloading area?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions for Kim? Thank you, Kim. We do have 2 speaker requests, please. Thank you. First one's Lyle Frazier.
Morning, folks. I'm Lyle Frazier. I live
you.
at 23640 Targerville Road. I guess I got some voice to speak here. Start off to my way thinking that it's a residential area up there, not a commercial. And on the gravel removal up there, whatever. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Tigerville, but when you come off of Deerfield, it's a pretty good steep pitch up there, and then it levels, and then you got another level, and water runs down there when it rains naturally. Well, it was running down the middle of the road, and last homeowners association we had here a month ago or whatever, I got permission to take my dozer and kind of crown the road. As you folks will know, you got to have water running off. So I crowned it and pulled a bunch of the gravel that fell off to the side and made a little pile down there that they could patch potholes with or whatever. And then he'd come down later on. I wasn't done with the deal. I told the president and the secretary, I still ain't done. I want to make sure I had the water running instead of down the hill onto Deerfield Road to go off to the ditch and go into the bar pits where I thought it should be. Anyway, didn't get done, but he had went down with his skid steer and smoothed it up and made it look nice, which, yes, I was intentionally going to do it, but I didn't get around to it quick enough. And so anyway, he got that fixed for me, or whatever, how you want to say it, and so that's where it sits. And in the wintertime with his powder bull, the deal that he got going, FedEx and UPS has come up there. Well, again, go back to steep pitch. The homeowner association's got a 3/4 ton Chevy pickup with a snowplow on it. It does a good job, but it don't scrape it clear down. You know, he goes out there with his skid steer, and when he plows it, he digs up the gravel and the dirt and whatnot and takes it off the pot licking road. And that's going to get expensive for the homeowners association. And I don't like that. That ain't a good deal, I don't believe, or whatever, however. And then, like I say, that erosion on them 2 steep hills. On my place, I put a culvert across it because it was coming right down my pot licking driveway. And then across Deerfield Road, when I first moved in there, I put a culvert across that so it would go across, and it's all draining on my property, which I knew that it's water runs downhill, and there's other stuff that runs downhill. So that's kind of where I'm sitting on the deal there. Let's see, it's, and then, yeah, going back to the gun deal there, I don't know how many gun sales there are in Pennington County. Companies like Shields and Cabela's and all the pawn shops. I don't figure we need one on that residential road. And it's, well, there's, I don't know, 8, 10 families that live up there, whatever, however. And with all the extra traffic that's gonna be there with FedEx, because he's gotta get stuff hauled in. He builds what he's building, then he's gotta get it hauled out again. And yes, the traffic has went up a considerable amount with that first permit deal that he had gotten. Now, he wants more, so where's it gonna end? So, and another thing is, I'm getting a little touchy here, but it's like you folks here. If you folks all lived on the same road, to say you wanted to put in a gun deal here and you had to drive by these folks' house and you're living that far apart. I wonder how many of you would like to have that happen, especially when you get older, retired, whatnot. You think you're got your little piece of the pie, so to speak. Nice, quiet, everybody gets along pretty good. I don't know, I guess ponder that and kick it around a little or whatever, but that's, again, my opinion, so I guess that's about all I got to say here.
Questions for Lyle? Thank you, Lyle.
Okay, thank you.
Next request I have is Beth Scott Thomas.
Some of the questions we had that wrote the letter actually can't kind of address some of it. My question is, he says now that there will just be, he will be making or trading, buying, whatever, and it'll all be online. And so nobody will be coming to his house and purchasing and looking at firearms. Is that correct? So,
Cody should answer that one, correct?
Co-second environmental plan, that would be correct. There's no storefront allowed.
okay, so then my question is, what happens in another 4 months? And he goes, you know what? I want to have people come to my house or come to this business and look at the firearms. And that's what we're concerned with, is that particular thing, having that traffic and having a commercial business in our residential area. We looked at the first cup that he had, and we're going, oh, okay, he does this, he does this blank business, he fills these, reloads these things, fine, not a problem. But I just want to make sure that we don't have him selling them out of his home. And what prevents that being the next CUP that he wants to have? So that's a concern.
Thank you.
Questions for Beth?
Yeah.
Chairman, can you have Lyle come up and answer those? Or Lyle, not Lyle, Mr.
Kim.
Nisi. Sorry. Getting you guys confused a bit.
Thank you,
Mr.
Kim.
Nisi.
That would be in direct violation of my conditional use permit, and I would imagine that you would enforce it and pull it from me. I would like to make one point. I have bought, I bought one gun in the last 2 years and sold it. And I did one personal transfer from one person to another. That's how much I use this part of my license.
So Chairman, my thing here is maybe to Lyle and Beth or the neighbors, check up on an ATF license and the requirements and their state, local, state, and federal laws that he has to follow with selling or purchasing or anything else with guns and ammunition. And I think you'll find that some of your questions also will be answered, not from just here, but again, if he wants a license, I know this from people that have them, they are very touchy on a lot of that stuff. So he can't just decide one day he's going to sell a gun. He can't just decide he's going to do something. That's a federal offense. It's not a county offense. Does that make sense? So he has to, Mr. DC has to comply with these rules and regulations. The road, we'll let you guys work that out. That's a HOA thing. But when it comes to his purchasing and selling and what he's doing with his firearms, that's a pretty strict rules and regs. So
I would like to also comment too that I am the vice president of the Tigerville Road Association. So the traffic and road conditions are, they're my concern also. I live back there. So, and I just, there's 10 families that live back there. If everybody goes out to get the mail and comes back into their house, it's 20 people have gone by their houses. That's part of living there. If they live in the front, everybody's gonna be going by your place.
Mr. DC, it's just, what you're afraid of a lot of times up here or asking questions is they don't know. So they're not, I don't know if they're, to me, it doesn't look like they're being mean. They're just trying to ask questions that they
Right.
don't know.
And I wish they would've came to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I
It's,
live less than half a mile away. They could've
well,
came and asked me.
I know, but okay, you guys, stop for a second.
Yep.
That's not always the case, and sometimes to answer the questions here, they feel more comfortable, sir. It's not that, mostly that they don't know
But
all
I
the
wanna
rules
be a
and
good
regs.
neighbor, so.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Deb. And just so for the record, I think we should answer the one question for Beth. Should he decide to make a change in his operation and decide that he does want a retail or a storefront, he would have to amend his conditional use permit and he would be appearing again here. Just for the record, so that that is answered. So, am I correct, Brittany? Cody?
Cody Sack, environmental planner. So that would be correct to an extent. He couldn't have a storefront.
No.
He wouldn't even come in and apply for that to amend the CUP.
No, but he
would
could
never
ask
be able-
for it. He could decide that he wants to expand that, and it probably is not going to fly.
Correct. He'd have to come in and amend the CUP. Neighbors within 500 feet would be
He'd
notified.
be heading
again,
in
and
some other direction.
We'd have this meeting again, correct?
Yes. Thank you. Anyone else in the audience that wants to speak on this? I want to be fair about it. I did have the two speaker requests. They've both been honored. Any additional comments from the Planning Commission? Chair would address a motion.
I would move approval of 2206.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve per staff's recommendation, conditional use permit 22-06. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion. Okay, let the record show there was one opposition. Motion carried. Thank you. On to item number 12.
Co-stack environmental planner. Item 12 is Planned Unit Development Overlay PU 22-10. It is to allow a recreational resort on the subject property. The applicant and landowner is Wheaton Enterprises LLC. Natalie Wheaton, she is in the audience if there are any questions. Location of the property is 12175 White Horse Road. Current zoning is agriculture district with an existing land use of residential. Access is off White Horse Road, and there is a special flood hazard area on the property. The zoning ordinance in section 216 lists the following standards and requirements that shall apply in a PUD overlay district. The answers are on the screen. I'll read them out loud. Number one, yes, the uses of the proposed PUD overlay district conform to the uses by right or a conditional use permit in an agriculture district. Number two, yes, the uses of the proposed PUD overlay district are the type and are located to minimize detrimental influence upon the surrounding properties. Number three, yes, the uses of the proposed PUD overlay district meet the standards governing area density and off-street parking of an agriculture district. Number four, yes, the proposed PUD overlay district involves 16.25 acres. Number five, yes, the proposed PUD overlay district is owned by the applicant's Wheaton Enterprises. Number six, yes, the uses of the proposed PUD overlay district are not designed as to be detrimental or endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare. And number seven, those are on the following table, and I'll read those answers aloud as well. Number one, no, the uses of the proposed PUD overlay district should not be detrimental or endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare. Number two, no, the uses of the proposed PUD overlay district should not substantially impair or diminish the uses, values, or enjoyment of other property in the neighborhood for the purposes already permitted. Number three, no, the uses of the proposed PUD overlay district should not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding properties for the uses permitted in the district. Number 4, yes. The proposed PUD overlay district contains adequate utilities, access road, drainage, and other necessary site improvements. Number 5, yes. The existing approach will provide ingress and egress as to minimize traffic congestion on White Horse Road. Number 6, the requested use conform to all the applicable regulations of an agriculture district with an improved PUD overlay. And then number 7, yes, future land use identifies the property as agriculture, large lot residential, and natural areas is consistent within this district. Currently located on the property, there is a single-family residence. They have several building permits to add to that residence and a detached garage. They do have an on-site wastewater treatment system with a current operating permit. There are 2 conditional use permits on the property, one for a bed and breakfast and one for a vacation home rental. If this PUD is approved, those will be reviewed by the Planning Commission and staff will recommend to end those. This was routed around for interdepartmental review. County highway, the applicant must have an access usage agreement with the Forest Service. This was routed to the Forest Service. Jacob Eckhart for the Forest Service came back and said that there was no issues with what the applicants were proposing to do. The applicants are requesting a PUD overlay to allow vacation home rental, 3 to 6 RV spots, 4 rental cabins, and a manager's residence on the subject property. The current single-family residence and garage will be converted into 4 vacation home rentals. At the time of the staff report, staff had not received any comments and concerns from neighboring properties. There was an email this morning that I believe the Planning Commission received from a neighbor who was requesting information on where the structures would be located. I didn't have time to respond to that person this morning. I will after the meeting with the map. With that, staff is recommending approval of Planning and Development Overlay PU 22-10 with conditions.
Questions or comments for Cody?
Got a question,
Mike?
Cody. I'm familiar with the property. You've got a cliff in the back, and they've been doing some dirt work on it. Is that where the cabins are gonna go up on top?
Correct. So if you look on the screen, their rental cabins are going to go up here, and then they have some RV sites down here with one cabin down below, and then their manager's residence. I believe the applicant can speak to that maybe a little better than I can, but I believe it's going to be up in this area by this 20 where this 22 is located on the map.
So how will they work the septic system on that? I mean, you're not gonna be able to use the one that's down below.
Correct. When they come in for the building permits for those, the septic system will have to be approved by the state and by our environmental planner, and they'll have to figure out a way to manage that, but they wouldn't be able to get their building permit for it until it's approved by the state and by Aaron, our septic.
Okay.
Cody,
Go ahead, Deb.
Chairman, they're on floodplain, not floodway, right, with the hatched?
Correct. This is zone A, so it's a 100-year floodplain without the base flood elevation determined.
Because we had approved it before, that's why I've seen it with the RVs, okay.
And everything that they're proposing is outside of that special flood hazard area.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments for Cody at this time? We do, just for the record, we did receive just before the meeting from Cliff and Casey Zemek, and we did receive a letter that you noted, or an email, and we also have one speaker request form, Cody, so we're going to reserve you for later if there's questions or comments we need to handle. Thank you, Cody. We've got Casey Zemet and Rodney Alexander, and I assume you want to speak separately, but if you would come up and introduce yourself for the record, and then you can take off on what your own comments are or wait for questions. Go ahead.
I did send the email, just so you know, this morning. My name is Cassie Zemet. I live down in Pringle at the moment, but my grandpa owns it, the big rectangular chunk there. And I'm hoping to build our forever home with my family on it. We've got 2 small girls. One of them's sitting in the back there. The other one is hellfire and a babysitter. And I just want to know exactly what is going on. I didn't know until probably Friday afternoon. about this and whatnot because I didn't get the letter. My grandfather did. And I just want to know exactly what's going on. I'm concerned. I'm building my forever home there with my children. And I want to know who's on the borders. I want to make sure that my kids can go outside and I want to know that they're safe and I don't have to worry about, who's on the border of my property and worry about who's going to be coming and going possibly, and whatnot. It's a creepy world. That's my concern. I want to know what's going on. And as a neighboring property owner or to be, I think that's warranted.
Hi, my name is Rod Alexander, and I presently am the owner of the property. My concern, whenever I read a recreational resort and specialty resort, my gosh, that if it is just left for that, it allows way more things than I would like to see happening. I'm not against some cabins. I'm not against a house being built at the end of our property there. But I am concerned, and I think it should be limited way more than if you read a recreational resort and specialty resort, and if nothing is restricted off of what's on this paper here, I would not like it. That's there's just no end to it, and one of the things, the weddings, the family reunions, that's fine, all of those things. I'm not against people trying to use their property. I like it, and but when I see the one statement here that non-residential uses that provide for basic needs of the resort lodging guest and day visitors, I look at that and the first thing I think, yep, next thing we'll have is 40 rentals for RVs, not for RVs, but for the UHVs that we see up and down the road that I'm already sick of and I don't even need to put up with them. But I would not be trying to stop. I don't care how you want to list it. And I hope that Natalie gets to use the thing. I like that. And I like the people that have the ambition to try to do something. But somewhere we got to have some limits of what can't be used. And right now, if it goes through and is listed for a recreational resort and specialty resort, gosh sakes, it just doesn't seem to me that it stops.
Thank you. Questions for Casey or Rod?
Rod, good morning. The warehouse that you have down, that's yours down towards the creek and then that unfinished foundation.
Yeah.
Now, are you buying this whole thing, or what part are you going to put your house on?
No, there is there is a 3-acre piece where the warehouse, lot 1,
Right.
and lot 2 is the 7 acres that runs up that hill right there where Cody is going to show us. And the lot 1 we're keeping with the warehouse, but that foundation and the rest of the ground is Cassie's.
Okay.
On highway service. Which one is his parcel?
Okay, there's one where the warehouse is on the bottom. See it on the left? Whoop.
That road that comes in and services that is.
That's his property, the square there?
And the orange is what Kathy's gonna have then?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
yes, yep.
And which one's his?
The little one below.
Below?
Yeah, this one right in here. Their warehouse building sits right there.
So how would you get into yours? Through Spring Creek?
No.
Past the warehouse?
Yep,
Right.
right on
Okay.
that
Yep.
same road.
Yeah. Okay.
Additional questions for Casey or,
Chairman,
go ahead, Deb.
So usually on a frontage road right there, they'll put commercial or they'll put highway service. It's not usually used for residential next to a highway, it- especially on a major arterial. So what they're doing is putting a specialty resort on highway service, basically. They say northeast, south, at rural residential. Is it highway service at this time, or are they putting it on ag?
Ag.
Okay. So again, if it was in the middle of, or where you guys were, it'd be a little bit different, but if you're putting basically commercial or a highway service use on that area, if they pull it further back, it might be a problem, but on the frontage, it's usually, what you put on the frontage road. Does that make sense? Now, behind you guys is a little bit different where you're at, but, without hopefully sounding rude, ma'am, you have a lot of area to get away from what's happening in that resort to a certain extent.
Yeah, I would like to see the thing to be held up for a week or 2 weeks so that she can have more of a better drawing so that I can look at it and know what her plans are. I have, and I wonder about where the cabins were shown on one of the other things that Cody had up there, that we would have where the creek is, because it goes right through it.
Rod, that was going to be my question. Is Casey basically asking for a submission of a site plan from the applicant so you have some idea of what you're looking at as an adjacent property? Did I understand your
Yes.
email?
But
Yep.
I
Yeah,
don't think,
I have
Thank you.
no, I have
Go ahead,
no,
Deb.
nothing against anybody for progress, absolutely nothing whatsoever. I just want to know what's going on, and so that we could work together. We're going to be close to each other. I want to be cool.
Yeah, I think that a lot of it could be resolved with Cassie and Mrs. Wheaton sitting down and going through what the plan is, and that's what I would like to see it, the way I'd like to see it done. But
Haven't-
there are certain things that if the plan takes all of that in, that I would certainly object to if it's.
Can I ask, would the commission allow me to bring Cody back up in that regard? That's somewhat unusual because you request a site plan when they come for building permits and layouts, right? Go ahead.
Correct, Copacetic Environmental Planner. So this was the site plan that they submitted. At the time she submitted the site plan to us, she was on the fence about doing a manager's residence or not doing a manager's residence. So the only thing that's not on this site plan is a manager's residence, but we require a meeting before all requests. And like I said, and she's in the audience, so she can speak to it a little better than I can, but from my recollection, it was farther up here, and it might even be on the other side of that section line. I can't see the property. And to speak to some of the other things, I can send you the conditions that are allowed, what they're actually allowed for. So when Mr. Alexander was saying that PUD overlays like a rec resort allows for family reunions, that would have had to have been requested and would have had to have been approved by the planning commission and ultimately the board of commissioners. So that's not actually an allowed use in this particular planning and development. If they ever wanted it, they would have to amend their PUD and you would receive another letter and another sign in 2 more meetings after that. So what's requested, what they're actually requesting is in the staff report. I just didn't get your email until
No,
like
that's okay.
8:30 this morning, so I didn't get a chance to respond to it.
They wouldn't have had it anyway. Thank you, Cody. So,
Thank you.
and the applicant is in the audience?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Casey. Don?
Hello, I'm Natalie Wheaton. I'm the owner of the Wheaton Enterprises LLC. And this is the property we purchased in the end of March of this year. And currently we're remodeling the existing structures to accommodate rental units. The reason we requested the specialty resort license is because that's the one that's available to us in the licensing structure. It's not a bed and breakfast. We're not providing any meals to the renters. we are really on the fence about RV spots. I see campsites everywhere, and they're not a pretty sight, in my opinion. And we did request for it in case we're unable to build cabins and permanent structures as means of generated revenue, but that would be so far down the road, and there's going to be another meeting and all sorts of approvals before any of that goes in, because it would require a completely different well system and another drain field, and we'll have to find out where we can actually put that before we can even start any sort of construction on that. The future cabins that are proposed are on that shelf here, right here. The whole property is already shelved out. The cliff that you're talking about, Michael, is not on, well, kind of is, but where they're digging right now into the site, it's not our land. That's actually Mr. Alexander's land, and yeah, that whatever is going on, I don't know. Yeah, so those cabins would have to be approved with building permits, would have to require a new well and a separate leach field or septic, whatever, it will have to be approved at that time. We are looking at about 5 years of the project there. So at this point, we're kind of just laying the ground for the future work, because we've been through this last year, and yeah, with a different property, and we just don't want to go ahead and do things before we have our ducks in a row. Yeah, I would love to address Mr. Alexander's concern about the recreational vehicles that are allowed under the specialty resort, and I have the same feelings about them. So that's not a part of the plan. My husband does do fly fishing and is looking at maybe expanding into fly fishing lessons, because there is a creek there and there is small trouts available there for catch and release. So expanding into maybe fly fishing lessons for youth and adults as a part of recreational resort, which would be allowed under that license, as well as maybe having like a snack shop eventually when we have enough renters there for that to be another revenue stream. But that's about all we're asking for within the scope of this.
Questions?
So at this point, the
Discussion.
gray house is it?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Yeah, we're not constructing any new buildings.
Any other questions or comments for the applicant? Thank you very much, Natalie.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience like to speak on this matter? We didn't have any other requests, but Cody, did you have an additional comment? Okay.
Co-sec environmental planner. No, I would just state that what's being approved today is 4 vacation home rental units, which are the detached garage in that house, 4 rental cabins, future rental cabins, and 6 recreational vehicle sites, and a manager's residence. Anything that doesn't fall in that category that they want to do on the property in the future would require an amendment to the PUD, letters to the neighbors, and 2 more meetings.
Thank you. I did have one request on your item number 15 for a condition that the proper permits be obtained from South Dakota Wildland Firefighter utilizing fire pits on the property, and any applicable fire restrictions or bans be adhered to at all times. This was before we kind of put our uniform set of conditions together. Is that something we can add now? Probably not.
You can, the planning commission can add any condition that they see fit to.
Does the planning commission understand what I'm asking? We have tougher restrictions now on our fire pits than we had a half a year ago even, I think. I'd like to see those added, and I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know the exact wording, but it takes 2 conditions. It requires that the particular applicant or owner notify the people of the fire bans and who's in charge of it and how to get a hold of them. Number two, that they have to meet the applicable restrictions on the fire pits and that sort of thing. There's 2 stages to it, I believe. Is that correct, Cody?
Correct, I believe so, and staff can add that. Again, this will go in front of the Board of Commissioners for the final approval. Staff can add those conditions in there for the Board of Commissioners to see and vote on those.
The reason I bring them up, they're no more restrictive. It's just that it's a lot clearer to the folks how seriously we take the fire danger on these pits. So I guess it's up to you. I'm not going to make the motion. I made it for 2 years. If you want to add our new conditions for the fire pit, I'd feel more comfortable if they were in there. Go ahead, speak up.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I would move that we include the latest wildfire provisions.
Is there a second to that motion? Moved and seconded to include the new conditions that we presently use as conditions for fire pits. Discussion.
I'll move approval to allow the recreational resort on the subject property with that addition with the number 15 to it.
Deb, I got to hold you up just for a little bit. We've got to act on the motion to include the new fire instructions first, and then I can accept your motion. Thank you.
I use both.
Any other discussion on the fire pit? And take a moment and if you want, whether she would like to hear what that is, go ahead and do that. But we certainly can always reconsider it if there is a problem with your applicant, I guess was what I would say. But I'd feel a lot more comfortable with it in there.
Correct. I'll run it by her with the new staff.
Thank you, so that she doesn't feel like we're getting something by on her.
Yeah, I'll send her a copy of the new staff report for the Board of Commissioners meeting.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Same sign. Deb?
Motion to approve with the additional amendment.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve per staff's recommendation. Planned Unit Development Overlay 22-10 with, I guess we're going to end up adding one more condition. It would be 26 conditions with the most recent motion. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Go
where
ahead,
do
Mike.
we stand on Mr. Alexander's concerns about going another 2 weeks or something to talk to one another and square things up? Are we okay on that now, or?
They have 2 weeks before commission as well.
Right.
If you guys know that, you have 2 weeks before the commission meeting, and the young lady said she would meet with you. Yeah.
Any other discussion? Are you satisfied with that, Mike?
I would think so. I think it would be done by that time.
Okay. Additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to agenda item 13.
Item 13 is preliminary plan PPL 22-33. It is to subdivide and create lots 1, 2, 3, and 4 and a utility lot of No Bad Day subdivision. The applicant and landowner is Rob Livingston. This was continued from the June 27, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. There was a discrepancy on acreage. We have 14 acres. The survey shows 18 acres. I believe the surveyor's in the audience and can speak a little more to it. They submitted, when they went out and did the survey, where the pins of the survey are from the 1960 plat, or the 1960 plat's off. So we're working with the Register of Deeds to figure out what, if anything, the applicant needs to submit to correct that acreage, if they can just submit the new plat, if a survey or affidavit needs to be filed. But staff is recommending approval of preliminary plan PPL 22-33 with conditions.
Okay, Cody, if you bear with me, I brought up to the commission and members that there is a way to discuss these items when they have basically the same information and submission. And we have 13, 14, and 15 our resubmission. It's all the same submission. And we have to look at waiving the rules so that we can discuss them all together. If the commission is interested in that, it does take a 2/3 approval to do that. If you care to move, and then I will explain, it's an undebatable motion and it can't be amended.
I would have moved that.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded to discuss items 13, 14, and 15. That is the only part of the motion.
Did you second that? Who seconded that?
I did.
Jim.
Oh,
Now I'll explain to you. The staff recommendations are considered by the chair to be part of the action we take on. So that would not be included, and we will have to act on each one of them individually, and it must be done in order as it is listed on the agenda. Is everyone clear? Okay. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Motion carried. We can discuss all three at the same time. Thank you.
So do you want me to present 14
Yeah,
and
you
15?
can go ahead. You can make your recommendations because they won't, they will be part of the individual actions. They have to be restated again.
So item agenda 14 is comprehensive plan amendment CA 22-15. It is to amend the comprehensive plan to change the future land use from highway service district to rural residential district. Again, the applicant and landowner is Rob Livingston. This was continued also from the June 27th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. For the same reasoning as on 13, the acreages didn't add up. We're working with the surveyor and the auditor's office to correct, to make that correction in the acreage. And then item 15 is rezone RG 22-21. It is to rezone 9.83 acres from highway service district to rural residential district. Again, the applicant and landowner is Rob Livingston. Staff would recommend approval on RZ 22-21 so long as the comprehensive plan amendment is approved.
You are open to ask any questions on 13, 14, or 15. Go right ahead. Discussion. I have one. Can you explain to me how the acreage problem will get shook out? Should we approve these?
So I'm still working with the auditor's office on that with Audra. She hasn't experienced this before, so she's working with it. It can either be a survey affidavit, or we did talk to a surveyor, and Audra was looking into it as well. With the new plat, with the new technology that's more accurate, if that would just take precedence over the old plat. So it'll be worked out somewhere between the planning office, the register of deeds office, and the surveyor.
In your conversations, do you feel comfortable with this?
I do, yes.
Okay. Any other questions for Cody while we've got him up here? Any other questions at all on the matter? Anyone in the audience like to speak on this? Please, for the record, come forward and introduce yourself and then go ahead and handle it as you see fit.
Good morning. Frank DeCesare, All Aspects Surveying. Pretty much I'll just stand by for questions. The only thing I might add at this point is that items 14 and 15 are irrespective of whether or not the plat gets approved. Those two can still go through independent of the plat itself.
That is correct. We will be handling these one by one. The approval has to be done on an individual basis. The discussion relates to the entire property, which is all 13, 14, and 15. Thank you. That's a good point.
If there are no questions for me directly? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this from the audience? From the commission? All right, now we need to approach these one by one. Item number 13, and I'll try to flip through these and help you out, Cody. We'll read them in advance because you have a recommendation on them. The item number 13 would be preliminary plat, PPL 22-33. Go ahead and make your recommendation, please.
Staff recommends approval of preliminary plat PPL 22-33 with conditions.
Okay. Chair would be interested in a motion on that. Approval.
I move we approve PPL 22-33.
Second of that?
Conditions.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Does everyone understand what we're doing? That's my discussion item. Okay, your we are proposing, the motion is to approve the staff's recommendation at this point in time. Additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 14.
Item 14 is Comprehensive Plan Amendment CA 22-15. Staff is recommending approval of Comprehensive Plan Amendment CA 22-15.
Okay, the recommendation is Comprehensive Plan Amendment CA 22-15. Staff recommendation. Staff recommends approval of Comprehensive Plan CA 22-15. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move approval of 2215.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded to approve Comprehensive Plan Amendment CA 22-15. Discussion. And again, the motion is to approve staff's recommendation. Additional discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 15.
Item 15 is rezone RZ 22-21, and staff is recommending approval of rezone RZ 22-21.
Okay, staff has recommended approval of rezone RZ 22-1. Chair would address a motion.
I move we approve RZ 22-21.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve per staff's recommendation, rezone RZ 22-21. Discussion. Again, we are following the motion will be per staff's recommendation. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to item 16. And the chair would address a motion to do these in the same fashion. So the best part about these things, so that we're not under the motion, is that then the people that sit here and wait have an opportunity to speak on all three of these and not have to come up again and again, let alone we do expedite the handling of them somewhat. The chair would look at a motion to waive the rules.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to waive the rules. In one case, discussion only for items 16, 17, and 18. And that means, as I said before, that we must come back, vote on them on an individual basis. A staff recommendation will be included at that time, and the motion will be made. Secondly, they have to be handled in the order they are listed in the agenda. Everyone understand? Okay. Thank you. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Go ahead.
Brittany Molitor, Planning Director. Items 16, 17, and 18 are to allow multifamily residences, fourplexes, on the subject properties. The applicant is Scott Moore. The legal description currently is Tract H of Murphy Ranch Estate Subdivision. When I had met with the applicant, he had indicated that he was going to plat these lots into 3 separate lots. After this item was advertised, the city came back and did say that they denied the plat because there was not proper drainage improvements and that they needed to resubmit drainage information. And to date, a new plat has not been submitted and new drainage information has not been submitted. Staff is working with the city on getting that information, but I'll go through any of the other information with this. Some of the concerns with this request that staff has had and communicated with the applicant. This was the plat that was originally submitted that was denied by Rapid City. They are requiring a preliminary subdivision plan to be resubmitted. To my knowledge, that has not been submitted yet. One other thing is that these fourplexes, he's requesting 3 fourplexes. Our ordinance does not allow more than 1 principal structure on a lot. So in order to have 3 of them, he would have to have these lots subdivided. In addition, the multifamily residences in suburban residential district does require conditional use. One of the other concerns that has not been addressed yet and could change the lot layouts and where the drainage would be located on these lots is the approach permits. I have not gotten confirmation from the road district, it is the Murphy Ranch Road District, that they are going to allow 3 separate approaches on the lots. If they only allow one approach for each of the lots, it could change the lot configuration of this. In addition, with our new Section 303 of our multifamily ordinance, I don't think anyone has seen request under the new ordinances. It does require 300 square feet of private space and 300 square feet of some kind of open or recreational passive space. So those are some of the concerns that staff has with this by not having the plat information, not having the drainage information, and not knowing whether or not the approaches will be approved. This was advertised prior to us getting a lot of this information from the city. So we did have to have a meaningful hearing on this item because it was notified and the neighbors were notified. Staff has emailed the applicant on several occasions to let him know of the concerns that the city and the county both have on this request. The biggest one is that a drainage report has not been approved by the city engineering office or the county highway department, who typically looks at most of the drainage improvements. So staff is recommending to continue these conditional uses to the August 8th meeting with 4 conditions. The 4 conditions would address the site plans, the approach permits, the drainage report, and the grading plan. Our highway department did have some concerns with the drainage plan. These will have a daylight basement, so there will be some kind of slope to these lots that would go to that detention facility. So the highway department did have concerns on how that drainage would go into the detention cells. Staff is recommending just to amend condition 2, just to be more clear to read that an engineered drainage report is provided to to Pennington County and Rapid City showing that the new detention cell design will meet the post-development flows. So that's our recommendation.
Understood. Any questions for Brittany? I have a number of requests on this. Before we do that, we received prior to the meeting an email from Sydney Cox. Just wanted to, for the record, it is part of the packet at this point in time. We've all received that. Is that not correct? Thank you. Good, Brittany.
And the applicant is not in the office.
The applicant's not with us. Okay, that was going to be my next step. So let's go to the people that would like to speak. I have a Timothy Trueblood. Timothy, if you introduce yourself just for the record and then handle it as you see fit. You are allowed to discuss 16, 17, and 18. They're all 3 being discussed at one time together, Tim.
I understand. My name is Timothy Trueblood, and I live at 5920 Derringer in Murphy subdivision, right adjacent to Longview. And I think effectively all of my arguments are shelved here. I think planning staff is doing their job. I think they're doing it well. Introducing myself, I'm a retired newcomer, and we moved to Rapid City here in the month of October last year. So I don't have a lot of the background, of course, that staff has, and I do appreciate their comments. When we moved here, we were told that this was a single-family subdivision, and that was under that consideration that we purchased. Actually, we purchased and moved here, all things considered. So we're very pleased with that subdivision. Kids play in the streets. Box elder comes with a bus right in front of our house. It's a full bus. Looks like it's going to be, they're going to have to bring at least another bus, if not 2. But for the most part, I would concur with the reservations and concerns that staff has. On the checkbox, I said, I don't agree. I oppose. Well, I'm not so sure that I think that's a bit premature. So from that standpoint, um, I would throw in one additional, if we look up at the chart up there, there's Springfield, dead ends. I've often wondered what the purpose of that was. Springfield is a 28-foot wide curb to curb, my measurements as of yesterday. And you park a car on either side, that takes an additional 14 feet. And now the kids have set up basketball so that they effectively play in the street. But it turns out that lots of times it's one-way traffic, especially down Springfield. So I'm not sure that if we have plans to extend Springfield, or we're considering that, if that at this point is really appropriate, especially if we come down and join into Highway 44. If it comes into Highway 44, then that brings another entrance besides Reservoir that allows access to Longview, and I'm not so certain that's a good idea. It has concerns. So what effectively you have is 28 feet minus 2 cars, which I measured yesterday, cars across the street. So that's essentially allowing 7 feet for each car. Looks like, okay, well, 28 minus 14 has got to be pretty close to 14 feet. And that looks like it's a single one-way. And I'm not so sure that that is going to work long-term, especially if we have to add additional bus traffic and other forms of traffic. So with that and an endorsement of planning, I rest my case.
Timothy, I can help you a little on that. The city of Rapid City would have a lot to say on the particular design and future of the street you're talking about versus the county. They would probably have the lead on that particular one.
Yeah, I suspect.
And so you may want to make your thoughts known there as well. And those people are very receptive to those
That's
sort of
my
comments.
experience. Yes, they are very receptive.
Questions for Timothy? Thank you, Timothy.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Maria Truba.
My name is Marie Trueblood, and like my husband, we moved here last year. I've got a couple of issues with this. First off, this is a single-family residential neighborhood, and that's one of the things we really liked about it. And I also object to the lack of notice. We found about this by accident about a week ago. We never received any kind of notification of what's going on. And after I found out, of course, we had to deal with 4th of July, so it was hard to even talk to the neighbors because everybody was off either buying fireworks, shooting fireworks somewhere else, or on vacation. And we had no time to talk to much of anybody. The new use is not single-family residential zones. Why aren't we entitled to notification of what's changing in our subdivision? I was just a little concerned, or even the fact that there is zoning. What do we have to do? Do we have to get on a list to say, hey, if anything's happening in this area, let us notice, or just, keep it in mind that we feel like we've been disenfranchised in that regard. But the other thing I'm a little concerned about, and I did find out a little more, I was rather concerned because it looked like they were beginning construction without having the permits because they did all the excavation and everything. We pretty much know what's going on in the subdivision because we have a dog that we have to take her for about 4 miles worth of walks every day. So we know every street in that neighborhood. We have met just about everybody in the neighborhood and all the surrounding streets. We know it well. But it's why isn't there some kind of notification to everyone before you actually start construction? Because now it looks like you're committed. And I'm not so sure that putting 12 homes in that area to make it even more congested is what we need. And it also assumes that the developer knew it was going to be approved, and that just kind of grates on me. Are we playing with in a fair system or not? I don't know. It just, I have heard some things today that make me feel a little better, but your processes, even when I went to the clerk upstairs to try to find out about this, and this was probably Thursday before the 4th of July. Well, all she could give me was about a half, the original, one of these pieces. She didn't give me, I didn't get this. She didn't have that up there, and she was in a big hurry. I got this, more or less, and I got this, except that this half was cut off. And it was pretty much like, okay, go away and leave me alone. It I don't think I'm that crazy lady. I would like to be treated with a little bit more respect and also have the residential input taken more seriously. So that's my comment. And also, my preference is that the development be limited to single family, but my preference probably doesn't count at this point.
Marie, just as try to answer two of your questions. One, we're going to certainly take your comments to heart in regards to our operation and the response to your question. But the second one would be, there's a very formatted and structured procedure we follow for notification, and it hasn't always made everybody the happiest. And it's based on our own ordinances, state statute, and the requirements that the courts have set up through the systems. And it can end up leaving you on the outside and not being notified, unfortunately, and we do see that. They are looking at right now, trying to improve on that. It's a very difficult measure to address, but I certainly, you're sitting right by the planning director when your comments about when you did catch up with us, Thursday, and you didn't feel you had a response, I'm sure she'll look into that.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Marie? Go
I have
ahead.
a question,
Mike.
and maybe I missed this. Does the Murphy subdivision have covenants?
No, it has a road district, but to the best of my knowledge, there are no covenants.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Marie? Thank you, Marie. Appreciate it. Then I have a request from Howard Rice. Howard, just for the record, if you'd introduce yourself and then proceed as you see fit.
My name is Howard Rice, and I own the 40 acres, which is just, if you're looking at that map, to the east. And this, back in 2002, I got a letter from Davis Engineering about starting Murphy's Estates. All single-family dwellings, that's the way it's going to be set up. And looking at some of the commissioners' meetings, and one back in October when Andy Skull, who's got Pink Kevin LLC, was questioned by Deb, basically. And his comment was, any houses that are going in there under LLC is going to be single-family dwellings, just like the ones that were built to the north. Now, all of a sudden, I get this letter that we're going to put apartment houses. There's 1.87 acres that goes right along my fence line. And there's a dump there. And a few people may not know about it, but there is a dump. It's, friends of mine at REA had a meeting, and they called and said, you want these transformers that we're digging up in part of this property? And I know there's appliances in there. I know there's rebar in there, and I know there's concrete in there. Because back when I built my house on that property in 91, that dump was still open. It's closed now or covered it up. But beside the point, I'm dead set against putting apartments in when the whole rest of the development are single-family dwellings. And the only thing that makes me want to know why they want to put fourplex in there, which to me is 12 different residences, which will add, I'm guaranteeing you, 24 cars. I drove through there Saturday on Knucklebuster Road, and I had to wait to get through there because a car was coming from the other side and cars are parked on both sides. And that's, the whole subdivision is kind of that way. Now I want to know where they're going to put 24 cars there. The utilities are in there, and I can kind of understand that because they put curb and gutter and they built a road. So if you, Rapid Valley Sanitary District, I'm sure they could get them all in there before they paved it. Makes some kind of sense. But Saturday they were doing dirt work again in there. So, and nothing's been approved. I just don't think it's the right thing to do. And the only thing that I can figure out, it's called greed. We can make more money if we pack more things in here. And I know that the county commissioners, I think on the 25th of May meeting, had a meeting and really discussed a lot about what goes on in these new developments, especially in Rapid Valley. Because I think it's moving way too quick without a lot of thought going into it. And I don't know if the developers are running this, or I really think that the county should be running it. And I realize the county and the city kind of knock heads on this 3-mile limit business. And the people that live in the county that get affected by the city have no vote. You can't even go and talk and complain to them because you're not a resident of Rapid City. But they can tell you how you can use your property. And that's not right either. But my whole thing with this, I have no problem. If they want to take those 3 lots of 6 point, whatever it is, they could put 3 nice homes in there. The new homes that they're building along, I think it's Powder Bridge or Powder Road, 3-car garages, nice, very nice homes. I can't see why they can't just do the same thing there. I have enough problems with, as that building's going in there, I go to the dump periodically and have to pay to get rid of Tyvek, shingle wrappings, you name it, that blows in there because actually I've even gotten some of those great big tarps they use to cover concrete. The wind blows and it comes in there. And I do have livestock in there. I do have cows in there now with a bull in there. So I can understand this could get a little bit, and I plan on keeping it that way. But my suggestion would be just to have the guy resubmit and put in 3 nice homes in there and then let it be. And once we start this again, it just keeps rolling along. Everybody wants to change after it starts out one way. Also back in 2002, Davis Engineering, when they set this whole thing up, and I could read it to you, but I almost got it memorized. On the eastern part of the property, we're going to have a ball field and a soccer field which can be used by everybody in the valley and also be used for storm drainage. But you don't see any of that there either. Thank you. Unless somebody's got
Questions for Howard?
Chairman,
Yes. Yep.
Howard, who owns the lots now, or maybe Brittany knows, who's selling the lots now to people? In Murphy's.
Pink Cabin LLC is the one that owns the majority of the lots, and then they sell the lots to individual builders. So there's multiple builders that own the actual lots.
So they have the lots that they sell to Pink Cabin LLC, selling the lots to the people.
To the builders, and then the builders are selling to the people.
Okay, so when they bought this, the builder had said that they were only putting single-family homes, and now they're putting in.
Right, so the developer sold this lot to Mr. Moore, and so this is what he's chose to do with it.
Okay, so, and when they sold them the lot, they had no intention of knowing that it was a 4-plex instead of 4 houses.
I can't say that.
Yeah. As the chair, I got to stop that conversation.
Yeah,
It's
I don't
headed in a
know what
direction
was-
I don't think would be
I don't know
sound
what
to
was
we don't know what the sales deal was.
Bottom
We
line
do know
is,
from Howard what he was told as an adjacent property owner. We've heard this in relation to other people in this same development, so I think we're all right there,
they have it
Deb.
on record, is what you're saying online or
Yes.
on this
I,
meeting. So, I'm gonna say that same thing. I'm gonna be up straight, that if you're gonna say you're doing single family, then you should probably follow through with single family. But, I don't know also if the developer can control, once they sell the lots legally, to tell people what they can do with those lots after, unless there was some kind of covenants or something that was said, before they were bought. So, to be up straight for the developer, like I said, if they did not put on the plat or anything else that they were not selling them as single-family homes, then, legally, I think they can do what they want with the lots, unfortunately. Even if you verbally say it, you have to somewhere, record it.
Thank you. Any other questions for Howard? Howard, thank you for taking your time and waiting for us today. Any other discussion from the audience on this three matters? Let's see, it's 16, 17, 18? Am I correct with the numbers?
Yes.
Okay, any other additional discussion from the commission on this?
Mr. Chair.
Before I bring Brittany back up. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair. I think calling this a fourplex is a little bit of a misnomer. You've got 4 townhouses here. Do they have any plans on selling those as a condominium unit?
In the conversations with Mr. Moore, because we meet on all requests now up front, so we have meetings with, eventually, I think they want to subdivide them into individual lots and sell them individually. So they would be 4 or 12 lots essentially.
And they would be about quarter-acre lots, approximately.
And they'd have to be rezoned to do that. This suburban residential does not allow that.
Any other questions for Brittany before I ask her to proceed? Brittany, it is under this, we only were on discussion. You will have to make your recommendation again in the action part of this, and we'll proceed from there. And we are only talking about agenda item number 16. Thank you.
Correct, and I would just like to make comment on all of these items. The property owner does not have authorization for the dirt work either. He submitted the stormwater plan. We did request that he had what we call water quality capture volume. They need to show that the impervious area that they're creating, that the drainage meets it. So our ordinance enforcement is aware, is going out today. We have met and spoken to the cities. Their construction inspectors are aware. So nothing that's been done has been authorized by ourselves, by the city, or by the county, with the exception of probably utilities and the curb and gutter as part of the original Murphy Ranch plan. So.
Go ahead, Brittany, make your recommendation on item number 16 then for the commission.
All right, staff's recommendation would be to continue this request to the August 8th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting with the 4 conditions. And I'll just read those for the audience. That a new site plan is submitted showing the contours, the fourplex structures, lot lines, private leisure areas, active or passive recreational areas, and size and location of the detention cells. I would strike the 2 because we don't know if there's going to be 1, 2, 4, depending upon how they have to do this. That a report is that an engineered drainage report is provided to Pennington County and Rapid City showing that the detention cells will meet, or the new detention cell design will meet the post-development flows. Number 3 is that a grading plan is submitted that shows how drainage will be diverted to the detention cells. And number 4 is that the proposed approaches off of Knuckle Duster Road are approved by the Murphy Ranch Road District for the fourplex structure. And again, I'll go back, if those approaches aren't approved as they're designed, they would have to reconfigure those lots to show different areas for parking. the impervious area, so there are concerns with that. I have not heard back from Numberview Ranch Road District to date. I was going to reach out when I go out there this afternoon. I am going to go out there with the ordinance enforcement officer on this. And I
Okay.
have reached out to Rapid Valley Sanitary District to see what utilities they have approved.
For the record, then, staff's recommendation is, we'll be recommending to continue conditional use permit CU 22-31 to August 8th, 2022 Planning Commission with 4 conditions, and condition number 2, 1, 2, and 3 as revised for the record. And Brittany did read them in the revised state. The chair would address a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve per staff's recommendation a continuance, recommending, as was just read, with conditions 1, 2, and 3 revised for the record. Discussion.
I would just like to mention one thing just for the audience members, that these are minimum requirements. That doesn't mean that this is being approved. That these would have to be met in order even for staff to consider it to be meeting our ordinance. So, just
Thank
for
you.
the record.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. On to item number 17.
So item 17 is conditional use permit CU 22-32 to allow a multifamily residence of 4plex on the subject property. The applicant is Scott Moore. The legal description is Tract H of Murphy Ranch Estate subdivision. And again, staff is recommending to continue conditional use permit CU 22-32 to the August 8th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting with 4 conditions with the same amendments as the previous 22-31.
Okay, and I'm going to reread that again. Staff's recommendation will be recommending to continue conditional use permit CU 22-31, B32.
32.
That was a typo, to August 8th, 2022 Pennington Planning Commission with the following 4 conditions as revised for the record. Discussion. Hearing none, the chair would address the motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve staff's recommendation to continue conditional use permit CU 22-32 to the August 8th Planning Commission with the following 4 conditions, with condition 1, 2, and 3 revised for the record. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. On to item number 18.
Item 18 is conditional use permit CU 22-33 to allow multiple family residence of 4plex on the subject property. The applicant is Scott Moore. The legal description is Tract H of Murphy Ranch subdivision. And again, staff is recommending to continue conditional use permit CU 22-33 to the August 8th, 2022 Planning Commission with 4 conditions as amended in the prior 2.
Okay. We'll read that after. The chair's going to address a motion. We're going to try to shorten that up a little bit, but we do try to get this on the record. It's very important when we have waived the rules that we get all the items correctly on the record. The chair would address a motion per staff's recommendation, and I will read that back to you. Anybody want to move?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve staff's recommendation to continue conditional use permit CU 22-33 to the August 8th, 22nd Planning Commission with the following 4 conditions. Condition 1, 2, and 3 as revised for the record. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. On to item number 19, excuse me.
And we do have people on Zoom, or the applicants are on the Zoom meeting for this request. This is for the Wild Spring Solar Project. It's conditional use permit review, CU 20-18. It's to review a conditional use permit for utility solar scale energy system. They did provide a memo in your packets. And I'll just briefly read some of the concerns. Currently, the Wild Springs plans to bring in project construction in the fourth quarter of 2022 or the first quarter of 2023. In addition to securing the CUP, Wild Springs has completed the development, quite a few stages of development for this. Their concern is that in our ordinance, it does say if the use is not established within 2 years, then the conditional use permit goes away. They are securing their financing at this time, and they just want assurance from the planning commission that all of the items that they have bullet pointed in here, that the planning commission does consider that they are establishing their use, that they're taking the appropriate steps to get their use established so that it doesn't fall into that ending or that section of our ordinance. So they are just wanting a motion, the confirmation, and I can read it, what they had requested, that Wild Springs requests confirmation from the Planning Commission that completion of the above activities on or before August 24th, 2022 is sufficient to establish the use authorized by pursuant to the terms and conditions of CUP P 20-18 for the project in accordance with the requirements of the county zoning ordinance, section 510G2 of the current zoning ordinance, and section 510E1B of the prior zoning ordinance. It was originally approved under the old section of the ordinance, that's for the reference. And therefore CUP 20-18 will remain in effect beyond August 24th, 2022. And they are on Zoom if you have any questions.
Okay, I've got a question, Brittany, and I think Megan may have to help answer this. We, as just individual citizens, haven't been able to get timely responses out of government offices. Income taxes are late. You can't get license or title out of the state of South Dakota, and they don't care. They'll darn near hang the phone up on you when you ask for some special consideration on something that's very easy. So I believe these people could be suffering stuff like this. Do we have to limit it to that wording, or can we, because of special circumstances such as COVID for the last 2 years that they've been trying to do this, can we give them an extension for a year? Is that allowable? Is what I'm asking before we, in the discussion. In other words, do we just have to limit it to these dates? Megan, thank you.
Megan Kruger, State's Attorney's Office. No, because that comes straight from state statute. When they amended the state statute, we had to change our CUP, so my preference would be for you to say that they have established their use, which, in my opinion, I do believe that they have, but I can't circumvent the authority of the commission.
Yeah, you're not the voting member we
Exactly.
need. Thank you. But that's a good explanation. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I can understand where this memo came from. I guess just being an individual citizen watching this go on for the last couple of years, I'm sure it hasn't been easy in the business world. Look at the supplies and the things that we can't buy off the shelf and deal with, and we have tons of people going through here that are suffering the same thing. Discussions, questions for Brittany? Chair would address a motion then based upon Brittany's recommendation.
So move.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
All right, I have one. How would you like it specifically worded so that we can be all in agreement?
Exactly how they requested in their memo, how I read into the record that Wild Spring requests confirmation from the Planning Commission that completion of the above activities, which was, and I can read those into the record also, that they entered into a power purchase agreement with the Basin Electric Cooperative for the project's output. They obtained a facility permit from the South Dakota Public Utilities Commission. They received a finding of no significant impact from the National Environmental Policy Act process required to authorize interconnection of the project to the New Underwood substation owned by the Western Area Power Administration. They executed a generator interconnection agreement with WAPA authorizing the project's interconnection to the electric grid. They obtained a letter of map revision from the Federal Emergency Management Agency for the mapped extent of the floodplain located near the project. They voluntarily obtained a Section 404 of the Clean Water Act jurisdictional determination from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and they voluntarily obtained a determination of no hazard to air navigation from the Federal Aviation Administration. In addition, on or before August 24th, 2022, Wild Springs will have undertaken the following activities: completed construction contractor selection, and they will have delivered the main power transformer to a storage site on the county near the project.
Okay, thank you. So everyone understand it's going to be a rather lengthy one, but I agree with the staff recommendation. Under discussion, the only question I have is I hope there's some wiggle room on whenever we're voting on an item that it says in addition before, on or before August 24th. A lot of things can happen between now and August 24th. And I do hope there's some allowable wiggle room that if those two things weren't completed, I'm thinking, what if their contractor selection, they ran into a bonding problem? There's all sorts of things that can come up that could drag it beyond the 24th. Whether we can include that has to be brought back to your attention for bringing it before the council, or the commission, is that something that could be done?
I believe that there is let's see, that there is a review on that August date.
Oh, in the 1 year?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm satisfied. Anybody else got any comments or questions? Somebody want to give a motion? That's a lengthy one, but I'm sure we'll get the wording right.
I can put it up on the screen.
So move. Let someone else.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to, let's say under a quote, say that the basics of the conditional use permit have been met.
Mm-hmm.
To include two items that are yet to be met but will be met within the time of the original. Is that correct?
Correct, and just the understanding that this planning commission agrees that with the activities that they have done, they have established the use of the.
Yes, established
the use under the
correct,
conditional
because
use
of our
permit.
ordinance.
Yes.
And that was the third thing, was that they have established their use under the requirements of our ordinance. Does everyone understand what they're voting on? Okay, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Now, let's see, we're on the 20th, is that correct?
It's the county board report. The Board of Commissioners concurred with the Planning Commission's recommendation from their June 27th meeting. Ordinance Amendment 22-01 for Pennington County to add Section 321, the Hard Rock Mining Ordinance, was continued to the July 19th Board of Commissioners meeting.
Okay, thank you, Brittany. Items from the public, our public has vanished. Items from the staff, building report.
So we do have the building permit report. Our single-family residence has slowed down a little bit. A lot of the areas where we were issuing building permits, I think they're out of lots. The Murphy Ranch subdivision and Prairie Fire, I know that there's other lots being platted right now, so we'll probably see that uptick more once those plats are filed. But our overall valuation is higher. And we're still ahead of what we normally are from this time of year. Last year was an anomaly for sure, so we'll see how the market does with the interest rates.
Thank you, Brittany.
And then we do have one other thing, and I just wanted to, she's in the audience. Chutima's last day will be next Friday.
Oh.
So today it was her last meeting, so. Yeah. So.
Where are you going? Where you going, Chutima? Better not be going to the city.
Oh yeah, my last day will be the next Friday, so I would like to thank you for all of you, and I appreciate all the work that you have been done for us, and thank you. Western Dakota Tech College.
For what?
For us, it has to be in a public meeting. Scholarship outreach specialist.
Wow, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Busy
Thank
girl.
you.
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Well, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Thank you, Chijima.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, items from the membership. Anybody got anything? I'm just gonna go through three quick. Our new procedure, I think it does help expedite those items when they are related, and we have been tough on our visitors sometime, and we'll have to sit and they come up 2 and 3 times. I hope that improved that. Number two, I explained that I do handle clerical errors a little. Brittany and I have already talked. We'll probably put an extra category in so that we can do this without pulling items from the consent calendar for a clerical error. We'll have that you can say, hey, there's a clerical error in this, and we'll include it. It will be done before the consent calendar. And then number three, if any of you know me, and Kevin does, and he's worked with me before, the one thing I won't tolerate when I'm running a meeting, and I used to tell every meeting, and I darn near should, is personal comments or any comment towards the staff or this commission in regards to a personal way. I just don't tolerate it, and I usually ask the person to leave. I tell them that they're going to get warned twice, 3 times max, and then they're going to be asked to go. It's that simple, and that's the way I run a meeting, because if we lose that contact with these people and it gets personal, we're all going to be unhappy. It just never works out. So that's all I had. Anybody else got any comments? Good. How about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second to adjourn. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Motion carried.